Hi, yeah. Hello, hi, welcome. How are you? This is from A to B, presented to you by awesomeo.com. I'm Andrew. I'm joined by Ben. Hi, Ben.
Happy Friday.
Thank
We
you.
made it through another week.
Yeah, and now we get the weekend.
Now we get the
Never,
weekend.
it never
Big
stops.
the
You
G
excited
Men.
for Harvard Holy Cross tonight, man?
Yeah. There are some college football games tonight in the real world, but we're gonna talk some college football later in the show. We're gonna talk some NFL early in the show. Did you watch the game last night?
A little bit of golf. I did. I didn't get through it all because
Yeah,
it
neither did
was
I. It would be a tough,
horrible.
tough one to get through all of it.
Yeah. Oh my God, Eli was
Whew,
a
he's
train
dust.
wreck, dude. that was that was brutal. Uh, Poor guy. I feel like you, me, and Laffy all got like different calls right, but
Well,
they
yep,
they were like incongruous with one another. You would think, right?
I know what
but
you're
they
talking.
all but they all happened. It was like I thought the Eagles were going to crush them. Laffy was big on Alshon Jeffrey, and you were big on Saquon Barkley, and somehow all of those things happened. But like they did, those don't make sense of happening all at once, basically.
Yep. Yeah, no, I Saquon was good, but I thought that was going to be more of a grinded out Giants maybe win on and the under type of game. The Eagles certainly were in full control, and yeah, I mean Barkley is amazing. We're not getting into that. As I was about to tweet this morning, like I'm old enough to remember when we used to debate does defense matter. Like this is just Saquon has taken over the Twitter sphere today.
Oh, really? I didn't even.
Oh my God. The Saquon, should he have gone to is everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, running back does matter. I think a little bit more than. It's not like they're all the exact same. There are certain guys that are more talented than others, but you got to have them be in the right situation, and the Giants don't really have the right situation.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, you know, this stuff, there's so many factors that, if the Giants, obviously they're going to be picking high if they draft a good quarterback and he's at a huge advantage because he has Barkley and OBJ and he hits the ground running, nobody's going to be complaining that they passed on Darnold or Josh Allen. If they swing and miss and those guys all become good and in 5 years Saquon is, overpaid and wearing down, probably going to be some second guessing there.
Yeah, and I mean the offensive line still sucks. That's like you
Incredibly
know
bad.
Solder's fine. Like he's the problem with Solder is he's like a league average starter at tackle, and they're paying him. Is he the highest or second? He's one of the top like 3 or 4 highest paid tackles in the league now.
Yeah, it was
That's tough.
Patriots castaway, wasn't he?
I wouldn't say castaway. He had 7 good years there. He was like the highest draft pick they've had in the last 10 years because they lose every other first round pick, and then they're also always picking like way at the end. And I remember Solder was because they got him from some trade. I'm trying not to say we. And so he was like the 16th pick or something like that. He was good. He's a fine player. It was a good. That's a really nice draft pick if you get 7 quality
No doubt.
years of a starting left tackle, which is probably the second most important position in football. But man, he's probably not worth 12, $15 million a year. And when the rest of your line is not very good, it's going to be a problem.
I know we were talking about the game. How did showdown go for you? Mine was uneventful. I had enough Saquon captain that it was actually fine, but no
Yeah,
Alshon.
I had some Alshon. I was not really into Saquon, so that killed me. And he was like 70% owned too. If I had known that, I would have played zero
I was
probably.
just saying you'd have had less.
um, but I had him on like 2 of 10. I don't think I cashed one. It was just a weird, there was a very specific thing you had to do. I took some shots. I was actually, again, we've talked about this a lot, and we're going to bring this into our show. This is a nice, not a segue, but we are going to be talking more about the lineups we make, and we're going to try to do that like within a tournament. Like I think Fridays often we will spend looking at sort of what we did in golf and whether or not we're happy with that sort of before the old Jeff Van Gundy line where you got to write the story while the ball's in the air. And it's whether or not you're happy with what you did. And so there were a few guys like the the random tight ends and then like Shelton Gibson that were actually legitimately like 1 to 3% owned. So I was pretty happy to get some of those guys at, free dollars. And it's like someone like Shelton Gibson, all he's got to do, you're hoping for the Traquan Smith thing where he just catches 2 or 3 balls and one of them's a huge, huge dom.
Yep. And I think we've been teasing this for months now. This is really going to be one of our last shows where we're going to start being more interactive. You're going to be kind of following along. We're going to be sharing our screen a lot more. And that's something we want to do, is not just go, hindsight's great. It's great to review a slate. Mondays, we'll certainly be talking about what happened. But Fridays, I think, is pretty cool for golf because it's not over. So we can dig in more to, everyone gets biased a little on how it's going. But we can kind of dive into, how's it going based on percentages, what we wanted to do, the game plan of our leverage. And that's, I think, a different look and something that's pretty useful.
Yeah. I try to spend I try to be as happy. I try to make my decisions about whether or not I'm happy with my lineups at, 7:15 after lock, as opposed to trying to do it on, after everything's happened. It's like, oh, this was stupid because this, we talk often about not being results oriented. So it's very important to do.
It's certainly true. Like, obviously the weeks where you crush and, it feels like, oh, I nailed that slate. I'm not saying you didn't, but it's more that you're obviously running super pure anytime you're taking down a big tournament. There has been plenty of slates where I have felt like I'm at a huge disadvantage right after it locks, and vice versa. Slates where I was like, regardless of how this goes, I'm really happy because I got what I wanted. Then you let the chips fall where they fall. That's really all you can do.
Yeah. Speaking of that a little bit, I mean, let's just talk. I mean, I got one golf lineup I want to bring up.
Sure.
So I was excited about how this went right after lock. I had, this is in the 555, the signature hole there. And I have a lineup with Mark Lee. I intentionally didn't play JT just because I thought he was going to get well over 50 in this tournament. He's actually a little bit lower in that than he is in the other stuff, which I found surprising. But I guess, more people were on the idea of getting off of him. So I have Leishman at 9.2% owned, which I was really happy with. JJ Spawn at 8% owned, I was happy with. He's been one of the worst plays on the board so far. But it's weird because I have a Leishman Woodland lineup who are both tied for first, and Louis at 10%, which I was happy with, who's playing well so far. Leishman Woodland tied for first, and I'm 14th of 250. I would have thought that would be higher, but man, it's a weird.
It's hard to even gauge. Like, I looked at the golf. I figured certain lineups would have moved up higher than they did, and then other lineups didn't really fall. It's so crowded. There's so much. Not only is this non-cut, this is they're tearing the course apart. So scores are wildly different. Like, guys who are 6 under could be way behind a guy who's 2 under in terms of points. And we'll see.
Danny Lee is still one of the better point plays.
He had a hole in one.
Yeah, exactly. He had a hole in one and a streak. I mean, Danny Lee's what's a good comparison here? I mean, he's got 10 more points than Stuart Sink, who's 25 places ahead of him.
It's going to change. I mean, Woodland was 11 under yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, that's absurd. It's, there's a lot of guys who have been really tidy. Several people haven't made a bogey yet through 2 days. It's going to be a lot of movement. I mean, my golf, I didn't spend, honestly, that much time. I said I wasn't playing too heavy. I just kind of let it fly with my pool. The one thing that I was a little irked about, and I knew this was going to happen, I like Thomas Peters. I wasn't saying I should have faded him, but I was pretty high on Bronson Burgoon, who I am way over the field. But in a couple key lineups, they were both 7,500, and I think it was pretty obvious that we were going to get Burgoon at a fraction of the ownership. I thought it would be like a third. It turned out it was almost like a tenth. It was really low. And if I would have known that, if I would have anticipated that, I definitely would have made the straight pivot because I had those guys projecting pretty close to equal.
Yeah. I mean, plenty of time left.
Oh, yeah.
What's the stroke difference? Like 6 strokes maybe between them?
Not even. I think it's a handful. It was more, once again, regardless if Peters shoots 10 under on both days and crushes Burgoon, I still will, trying not to be results oriented, say that I should have had more because those percentages is just not what I was looking for.
Yeah, I was surprised that Peters was as high owned as he was. He's 35% owned or something.
That's what I'm saying. And I get it.
Sorry, that's not true. 23.6 in the 555.
Over 20%. I think that, you're trying to, it's not that you can't buy in there. It's just he gets such a bump from it being a non-cut. Sometimes it's too much.
He's 34.5% in the 153 max. That's where I saw that. That's insane.
It's a lot.
Yep.
But what's going on, chat? We got a couple of our peoples in there. Yeah, we're going to try to make it a forward-thinking show.
Exactly.
It's a lot of hindsight. We can take the Twitter for the hindsight hot takes. But yeah, so we're going to be talking that. We'll see. It'll be a lot of fun, too, because most tournaments, when golf really gets going, we'll be in the midst of the cut. We can talk about how we think that's going to go and see what's what. But yeah, this one's not the best.
This is a fun one for watching on Pacific Coast time because it starts at like 5 or 6 and then it's over by midnight or 11, I think. Like, I don't know. Pretty, it's nice to have some prime time golf viewing.
Yeah, for you. I mean, it's a little late for me. Yeah. It's definitely this is just a different tournament in every aspect, including the time. It is twilight golf though, so you could stay up and sweat it tonight.
Yes. Absolutely, we'll be doing that. All right, here. You want to talk some main slate NFL?
Sure.
We spent a fair amount of time talking about it last night. You can check us out. 3 fellas talking football, the 2 of us, and Dave Loughran spent quite a bit of time breaking down the slate. So that is out there. But a couple other things. I mean, Devonta Freeman is out. That was kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
Does that put? Yeah. That does put Tevin Coleman into play a little bit for me. He was very disappointing during the 3 weeks. Freeman was out earlier, but I think he kind of ran bad. He got, I don't know, I looked it up. It was 57, 58% of the carries. He got, 10 targets in 3 games, which was nothing special, but it's, 10% of them. I think that should regress up a little bit. I expect him doing the sort of, he'll do the 65-35 thing with Ito, and I imagine that he should get a few more targets than that, I would think. I would guess, I would put him I have him right now more in the 12 or 13% of targets as opposed to the 10 he was averaging before. So you put that as one more target, he's back down to 5,400. I think it's a reasonable spot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll say this. What I think happened, and this is just what happens when Freeman first got hurt. The natural thought was, those two were always difficult to peg. Now we've got a workhorse situation. This is going to be great. He was popular. He was higher priced, and that's just not what's happening with the Falcons. Like Ito Smith has a real role.
Well, basically what happened is Tevin Coleman is now playing Devonta Freeman's role, and Ito Smith is playing Tevin Coleman's role.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people just thought that Tevin Coleman would just take over full reign and they would not really utilize Ito Smith at all.
Yeah.
And that's just not happening. So turned out, he didn't have the best shot. He still had looks and whatnot. I think now that he's maybe soured for some people, the price is certainly more appealing. I'm more interested now than I was kind of when he was at 6,500-ish a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's a really nice spot because, 2/3 of the workload at 5,400 at home in Atlanta against a putrid defense. Like, man, I don't know. It's a really nice spot. And I don't think it will be, if this was the first week Devonta Freeman was out, like he'd become the 35% on play immediately.
Yeah. I mean, and, we were alluding a little last night that this game, I think pretty confidently Falcons are going to put up some points, but it wouldn't shock me at all if it's just a different way. And we've seen time and time again, some of the times, you get the team right, but you don't get the stack right. So, you can be sneaky within the Falcons if you somehow integrate Coleman. Certainly, I prefer some other guys in that game. I think he's got more risk just because he isn't getting the percentage that I would love. But at that, I wouldn't be stunned with a game script where he ends up finding the end zone a couple times.
Yeah. No, I don't think that would be stunning whatsoever. the Falcons certainly have been able to run the ball in years past. They have a pretty decent offensive line, and the Bucs are not particularly scary. So
no. We did have John Brown. I like John Brown a lot. I wrote him up actually in my article this week. He's just consistently seeing a bunch of targets. Ravens, they have other receivers, but I think he's kind of that lead dog right now. Crabtree's been, I don't know what's up with him these days. Not the best matchup in the world, but you can look to him. I found wide receiver really difficult this week. Usually there's a ton of options. I didn't feel great at all when I looked up and down it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not having a ton of fun with it. It's like, do you want to bite on this massive Julio chalk? I think my favorite play is Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, you are really high on him.
Yep. Total is rising in that game, by the way.
Good. I've been over on Tyler Lockett every single week so far. I'm interested just to stay with that game a little. I know he completely bombed last week. Do you have any interest in Baldwin? I know you think it sets up a little more for a burner type, but
no, I like Baldwin too. I mean, yes, it sets up more for a burner, but Russ also, like, some of the way he does, the way he moves around in the pocket, and we've seen this with Doug Baldwin a lot, where Russ is running around for 7 seconds, kind of the Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson connection-ish thing, and he waits for Baldwin to get open and basically throws him open. I think this is a good spot for them to be able to do that, just because the Raiders don't really have much of a pass rush and they have pretty slow people all over. So, eventually, even Lockett's obviously a lot faster than Baldwin, but Baldwin's shifty in his own right. He can get it done. So, and there's a bit of didn't he complain? We got squeaky wheel narrative. Like,
there's a lot of squeaky wheels around this league. I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned if he complained. I mean, he only saw that was off one target, right?
I'm not sure. I think so.
He certainly wasn't involved. So.
1 catch, 1 yard. That was not fun.
No. And that's again, I know we did talk about this last night, but it's worth mentioning again. I still think that the biggest red flag for me is the fact that the Seahawks really are starting to find a ground game.
Yeah.
And if you have it's not even like, just Carson. They have 2 guys that they feel comfortable with. They could, realistically hand it off 45 times and just pound it away.
Yeah, if they control the clock and do that kind of thing, like that is certainly worrisome. That happens pretty rarely in sort of today's NFL, so I'm not sure. Like, I mean, it's a potential worry for sure, but I think it's more like a 10% kind of hit to the total volume. But
I mean, I'm not. It's just that's a bummer, because it's not just that you can be in a spot to succeed, and if you don't get the opportunity, which Wilson's been at the top of that list. There's been multiple games where I thought this is the spot. I watched the game and it wasn't like it wasn't. It was they didn't really need him or allow him to do it. They are kind of going another direction, which I still can't figure out why he's not really running. But
yeah, I'm not really sure on that. It's a bummer.
Yeah. It's tough, man. I'm just like looking through. We still don't know with Crowell. I think a lot of people are waiting on that injury. I think he's heading for a game time decision. And Low Powell probably going to be popular if he does in fact sit. So we'll see.
Yeah. You know who was popping for me is Dion Lewis. Do you like him at all? I think it's got to just be the 4,700, but
yeah, I mean, obviously I looked at the Titans a little, it's not a great matchup. Of course, the Ravens are solid. It's just going to be a matter of, do you think that he saw more carries than Henry. Do you think he's starting to really take over? Obviously, if they fall behind, it's Dion Lewis time. He doesn't have to worry about that. But if it's close, if they're winning, does he still see those carries? That's my question. I mean, the price is pretty good. I don't know exactly where they fall, though, in that type of situation.
For what it's worth, I still have it. I have it like 50% of the rushes for Henry and 35 for Dion Lewis, and Dion's still popping as a really good value because he's been getting a lot of the receiving work lately.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's the important part. So,
yeah, I mean, I just worry a little about his upside. Seems almost fringe cashy to me, where feel pretty good if he's getting, 5 to 10 targets, but can he go 20 fantasy points, 25? You're probably banking on finding the end zone, of course, or a big play. So I think you could do worse. It's not the greatest. Him and Corey Davis are guys I definitely looked at on the Titans. Not sure how much I'm really going to have though.
Yeah. I mean, Lewis's last 3 weeks are at Buffalo, home for Philly, at Jacksonville. Like, that's about as brutal of a stretch as you can have. And he picked up, he's got 16 targets through those. I don't know. I find it to be a little bit intriguing.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. He's probably in a buy down or stock is low. That's a good thing to identify. Is it's not just if they've gone through a horrible stretch of defenses.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta anticipate that, and that is true.
Baltimore's okay, but it's not exactly a murderer's row. And like they've got both tackles are back. Luan and Conklin have both had their issues this year. They've both missed a couple games. I think they were definitely back last week, but those are both really high quality tackles that have missed some time. So that bodes well for them as well to have a little bit more of a line. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm tentatively interested. He's showing up as a pretty decent value in the projections right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna have to wait and see again. Below Powell impacts that guy directly because they're in a very similar price point. Not that it's funny I say that, but I almost have more interest in him if Crowell sits and everyone in the world goes to Powell because you'll get him virtually non-existent in ownership.
Yeah, I still, as of right now, I haven't totally built, but like I think for cash, I would want to start with Yeldon and Mixon. Those would be the sort of preferred options there, but
yeah. We did have a quick question in chat about Ito Smith, who we briefly talked about. He's 5K on FanDuel, and he did see some time. Any interest there? If I make a bunch of teams on FanDuel, I wouldn't mind it if I really wanted to pure punt and hope that he finds the end zone. I just worry exactly, in big field tournaments about the upside for him. He's found the end zone a couple times here, and you're kind of banking on that. He doesn't have that many touches, even though he's part of the offense in a good game for sure.
Yeah, he's part of the offense, but it is one of those. That's a tough buy because he's only out there for like a third of the plays or something. Freeman is getting twice the work as him. I mean, not Freeman, Coleman. Twice the number of time on the field. And
he did see a little more last week for what it's worth, but I tend to agree with that premise.
And it's just you're buying the guy who has the touchdowns and less work. That just seems a little. That's not how I tend to attack DFS. So I like the guys without touchdowns because eventually they'll get them.
Jones, our boy. Yeah, I still don't know that's going to be down to the wire.
I just think this is one of those weeks where the Falcons are going to score a shitload of points. So I think it's one of those, and this has been my mantra with the Steelers for 2 years, where it's like you don't, like make a lineup. When you're making tournament lineups, make sure one of them's in there because like they're going to do some stuff. So place some, make sure you play somebody. And I think, I will have quite a bit of Julio, but I will probably have quite a bit of Tevin Coleman too on my non-Julio teams, just as a reference. But I may sprinkle some Ridley, some Sanu's certainly viable. Ridley has gotten a bit more like actual work lately, so
he's just so inflated though.
Yeah,
like through no fault of his own. It's just it's just so hard for me to buy a guy who's overvalued. And we've seen time and time again. Just because you're overpriced doesn't mean you can't get there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, what is it? He's like 6,300 now, right?
No, it's more. I think he's close to 7.
Oh, gross.
But yeah, where is he? I just want to see this. Calvin Ridley, 6,300. You're right on the nose. Still, it's hard to bank on that. We did have another injury. That's your boy Croft for the Bengals is out, I believe. So you could see a situation where that Uzoma guy. I mean, I'm sure they have another tight end, but he's going to be on the field a disproportionate amount of time. Interesting, just because Cameron Brate, for good reason, was that like chalk tight end now there seems to be some other options kind of emerging.
Do you think it's Braid or Hooper?
I thought it was Braid, just with no OJ Howard. But this just sets up, and again, I alluded to this in my article. David Njoku is going to be lost, and you said him last night too. I think he's $100 more than Braid. Obviously, one of Baker's targets. He's super big, super athletic.
11 targets last week.
But yeah, a lot of targets. Obviously, they play an overtime game every week, so their stats are inflated, which is just absurd. But having said that, I think that's a really good tournament play. It's not that I don't like Braid. He seems to be, right now, he's my cash tight end. So yeah, there are options though. This also feels, just at first glance, like I'm going to have a lot of teams with 2 tight ends just to make some room.
Yeah.
Which, that is what it is.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. The Bengals are tough. I don't know. You get Mason Shrek, I guess. I don't see that being a huge uptick for Uzoma. I haven't updated the projections for that, but I think he was at like 10% before. I don't see that really being – I don't think you just take the, 7-8% that Tyler Kroft was in for and just put that all on Uzoma. I think it gets spread around quite a bit. So I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get there. But
fair enough.
We'll see.
I mean, he's really cheap. He's flat 3. And yeah, we'll have to monitor Crowell, OJ Howard. These guys, we don't know just yet what will happen, but it's going to be, and that's the NFL. I mean, now we're getting into the thick of the season, that's going to be part of it every week, is who plays, who's hobbled. That dictates a lot of what you do on the ownership side, and it dictates a lot of what you do just in the roster side for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it should be good. I don't know, whatever. There's plenty of plays out there. Oh, the one guy. We talked, I think, a little bit about it. What do you think about Zeke? That price tag is just kind of unfair. It's kind of like Barkley last night, to be honest, where it's like that price is just off enough that even though it's a tough matchup.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. It's tricky. They have no choice. It's not like Zeke, for them, if he's ineffective, they will not be scoring much. So it's all going on him. They are at home. I don't mind it, but it's hard for me to justify him over Mixon. Now, if he's 5% owned, something like that, I plan to have some exposure to him regardless. I do like Zeke, and he's getting more work in the passing game this year, but it's still not the best because there is a real scenario where they're just ineffective across the board.
Yeah. He's rating as a really good value.
Interesting.
The projections. So,
our good friend in chat, we got Chad. I want to use a ton of the Texans this week, but I have no interest in running it back with any of the Bills. If you try to, he's got a bunch of Shady and then 30% Kelvin Benjamin and Zay Jones. I mean, you don't necessarily, of course, have to run it back, but if you do, there are no other options besides those 3, and I don't feel great on them on the whole anyway.
I don't think it's some mortal sin to play one side of a game and not run it back.
Wow.
I think that's it's like, sure, it's helpful. Yeah, there's some correlation. Yeah, maybe you get the shootout and like everything hits just right, but it's not necessary. It's not always going to work that way. I played a ton of Minnesota Cousins, Thielen, Diggs stacks without running it back against Philly, which, worked until it didn't. Ertz went nuts at the end, but
running it back, I think it's, and I don't think you're disputing this. It certainly helps, but I wouldn't force a guy in if you don't like the spot. Like, I think if you get the Texans right and they hang 38, Kelvin Benjamin probably in a better spot than if they don't do that, but it doesn't mean he's going to just have a big game, obviously.
Right. The Bills just kind of don't really have anyone. Like, there's no one that can really.
Shady's the best bet, and I've tried to buy sporadically. It's just not working.
Because they don't, because when he's your best weapon, there's not really much you can do as just a running back, Even Saquon Barkley has, like, people are paying a lot of attention to Odell and Sterling Shepard down the field. Like, there's not just this overwhelming concentration on this one guy. And there is
It's a really tough spot, and not that it's a real fact, but I'll say this: Josh Allen is also a threat to run. Like he's border. They don't have many opportunities, but we've seen him vulture what could have been some good plays with his legs, and that makes it even more complicated.
Yep. And J.J. Watt has, against all odds, been J.J. Watt again. Like that is crazy considering the amount of injuries he's had the last couple of years, but he's awesome.
Yes,
I don't think the Texans defense on the whole is anything special, but
I like the Texans D this week, though. I think there's a lot of
just lock and load anybody against Josh Allen, man. That's going to be
Vikings D also most expensive, but for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
I saw you get in the little Josh Allen shot when I was trying to drink some water. No respect.
It's not. Listen, it's just that's what you do. There are certain times where you just target. What are you really targeting? And we talk about this a lot. But what are you targeting when you're trying to have an opposing when you're trying to play a defense, right? You want
just
the Bills, yeah. You want sacks.
There it is.
You want pressure. You want interceptions, and like some of that is a lot of that can be on the line and the lines fighting each other, and then a lot of it can be on the quarterback. And Buffalo just happens to have a perfect storm of a shitty offensive line and a quarterback who will do crazy stuff. So it's like it's pretty awesome spot to be targeting all the time.
Yeah, no doubt. OJ Howard practice isn't full today, so maybe Brate. That's gonna have to be reworked if OJ Howard is out.
I think it was gonna be Hooper anyway. Personally,
it wasn't gonna be for May, but there you go. Well, that's why it's tough.
Hooper, like 2,900 or something.
Hooper?
Yeah.
He is he's right next to Brate, 3,500. So
picked up 12 targets last week.
Just reeks of Advanced McDonald for me. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, Austin Hooper's not, he's been a tease for a long time.
He's just certainly not impervious. I mean, we've seen time and time again with the Falcons that there's no rhyme or reason. Like if he got 4 targets in this game, would you really be stunned? That there's just a lot of mouths to feed, and we don't know where it's going.
Yeah,
Julio included, which is insane.
Yep, but this is one of those spots, and I'm serious, where you can make if you're using the Cruncher extension that we have at awesemo.com, you can go in there and build a group under advanced options. There's a tab that says groups. You can say, hey, I want a group of Julio, Mo Sanu, Calvin Ridley, and Austin Hooper, and Tevin Coleman. And you can set it when you're making your crunches to say, play exactly one person from this group. And that way, because somebody's getting a 30-point game out of those 5 dudes, and probably not going to be 3 of them. There's probably going to be a couple 7-point games in there. So who knows? But I would make sure to be trying to get exposure to all that. Obviously, I like Julio the best. I think Coleman's the most interesting tournament play. I'm with you. I'm not a big Hooper guy either. I think Ridley is way overpriced. Mo Sanu, I think, is fine. I think Mo Sanu is fine in cash.
I had him in cash last week. Yeah.
I did until I got the money to get up to Doug Baldwin, so that was awesome.
It'll be interesting. And I hate to say this because I have been uttering this for like a year in golf shows where I think the course is going to play harder and then they tear it up. It really does feel like scoring going to be down this week. It's just there's tough games. There's not high octane offenses. There's a little weather. I'm going to factor that in a bit. I mean, it's nothing crazy. I wouldn't be stunned, though, to see – I'll say this. I would be stunned if it's one of those ridiculously high-scoring weeks where 200 is nothing special.
Okay. Yeah, and there's going to be – I mean, I think the chalk is going to be somewhat heavily concentrated, too, because this Atlanta-Tampa Bay game is pretty affordable and, like, significantly higher of a total than most of the other games. Cincinnati-Pittsburgh will pick up some, but the Cincinnati-Pittsburgh guys are all kind of more – they're almost like more – they're more expensive than the Tampa-Atlanta guys. So
certainly that game's going to dictate – if that's, 45-42 and Julio has 220 yards, then the cash lines are going to be through the roof. If it bombs, cash lines will be non-existent.
Right. That's more what my point was.
Yeah. It's polar, but even though I'm in on that game, I definitely am. It's not not that they are sometimes. Doesn't seem as straight lined as most stackable games. There's just a pool of guys from both teams with a pecking order that I don't think is even remotely defined. So it makes it a kind of a chess match within the chess match.
Yeah. You playing David Johnson this week?
I mean, I've been playing him the entire year. I've way, way, way less interest this week for the first time. This seems, and I've been higher on the Cardinals. This really seems like a get right spot for the Vikings D. I wouldn't be stunned to see them annihilate them.
And they played well against Philly. Like, they've been a little better. They got murked by Josh Allen. And then the Rams, whatever. No shame in getting lit up by the Rams, really. And they've been better since. I think they're okay. I think that defense is really talented. I think losing Everson Griffin is a big problem, but like they're still really deep. They've still got a lot of talent there.
They've been better, but I think you would agree though, they haven't shown a dominant, even close to a dominant performance yet this year.
No.
And
might be coming this week.
I'm worried that this is just a complete demolition. So yeah, I like you could, Kirk and David Johnson and guys, I'm not sure I'm rolling them. And I honestly think that I'm even scared to Thielen and those guys. Of course, they're going to get work. It's not like it's just a pure blowout, but I don't know how much interest I have in that game as a whole in terms of stackability.
Yeah, I do think Thielen is the better play there. I think, Diggs is going to get a lot of Patrick Peterson, who like the Cardinals still, their defense is not trash. Like they've got some players. They've got some holes, but Chandler Jones, Patrick Peterson, like they can generate some pressure. They've got some good coverage guys. Like they're not totally dead back there.
No, they're not inept at all. It's just, and they've obviously, I think their biggest problem, not that anyone really cares about the Cardinals defense, I think their biggest problem was that they were just getting gassed because they were on the field the entire game. Yep. Rosen has alleviated a little of that just by being effective. I don't know if he's going to be even remotely effective in this spot.
Yeah, that is a thing. Like there's a lot of over the years, your like best defenses are the ones that are playing like because they have just an efficient offense on the other side. It doesn't have to be a showy one, but an offense that holds the ball for 32 minutes makes it a lot easier to play defense.
Infinitely easier, like for so many reasons. That's a huge thing.
Yep.
Anything else before we talk a little college?
I don't think so. I mean, are you still scared of the snow?
I'm not. It's something I have no idea. I haven't looked at the forecast. For what it's worth, the total is still above 50. So I feel like if it was a major factor, that thing would be dropping wildly. No, as of right now, I'm thinking that gameplay is pretty much straight up.
Yeah, I mean the Rams are still projected to score like 30 points.
Yeah, I wouldn't be even remotely surprised if they do that. We'll see. That's one that I'm going to take pretty close to the wire. If conditions are tough, though, I will go as far to say that the Broncos defense will be in my player pool. But it's going to take a special set of conditions for that.
It wouldn't be for me either way, I don't think. Because I think there's less plays if it's really shitty out. And I think they'll just try to pound the ball with Willie, and I think they'll be successful in doing so because they have a kind of a mauling offensive line, and Denver is
just get gashed.
Yeah, because they're just a little smaller. Like they're good. They've got good pass rushers, and they're missing some dudes, but they're not as well equipped to stop the run specifically because they're more of a smaller speed guys sort of thing.
Actually, one last thing, and I just saw this in chat, but I wanted to ask you this too. Because you would certainly know more than me. Do you have a reason why you think Peterson might roll to Diggs over Thielen?
I don't think Peterson goes into the slot a ton, right?
I don't think so either. Is it strictly that? That's all I could.
Yeah, really it's Thielen. Peterson usually covers he'll cover one of the outside guys, and Thielen is playing primarily out of the slot. So that was my thinking. One more thing I think that's probably worth talking about with the Rams, because I was just kind of thinking about where they are at. Robert Woods is the guy who's going to get the Chris Harris treatment. Do we know anything about Cooks and Kupp yet?
From what I've heard, they're both on track to play.
Okay.
That seems mildly surprising, but with a concussion, it's almost more, or if you're passing the things, you're going to play. It's not knee or anything where you got to test it. You're either in or you're out.
Right, and it's a brain injury. It's not like your typical 4 to 6 week time to. You have no idea how long a concussion is going to last for.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's very black and white. They'll either pass those hurdles, and so far I haven't heard anything that says they're not on track.
Okay. All right.
So.
Yeah, Reynolds becomes pretty interesting if one of them sits at 3,900. But yes.
Yeah, that was impressive. They just they lost those two guys and they kept chugging along. They're very, very good.
They are. All right. College football. Got some games.
A little college football talk. Yeah, it's a good slate. There were a couple weeks there I was out. Wasn't able to get to Connecticut, so I hadn't played too much besides what I had made here and there when I was out of the state. But I play in a full slate this week. We're in conference schedules now, so way less of the, how long will my starters play games. It's some battles. These are really good games, a lot of contested conference battles.
So, yep, that sounds good.
Do you want me to just rattle through any? I know you kind of take a look and talk about some ones that stood out to you. There's nothing. Go ahead.
No, there was an obvious one, but I can't remember which one it is.
Probably the last game. UCF in Memphis.
Yeah, that one was interesting. Oh, yeah. Christ. I didn't even see that. Yep. 81 over under -5 spread. Yeah. Tight spread 81. 81's a lot of points.
81 is that's a big boy game.
We're talking about this Patriots-Chiefs game being the highest total in years, and it's 59.5.
Yeah.
Here we got one at 81.
81. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's just going to be, UCF hasn't lost in a long time. They were undefeated last year. Mackenzie Milton, most expensive quarterback. He is phenomenal. They use him extensively in the red zone to run, so he's a super threat there. They seemingly love to get this guy the touchdowns when they can. He just has monster upside. It's going to just be a test of, do you think Memphis can slow him? Obviously, they're not going to stop him. Can they slow him? I would lean towards no. They're probably going to have to outscore him in this game. So it's going to be a popular build. The guy I want to talk about, though, is on Memphis, is their all-world running back, Darrell Henderson. I don't know exactly what to do with him because his numbers are so ridiculous that it's just kind of hard to gauge. He's averaging 12 yards a carry. And it's not like he's some gadget pack. He is their lead dog. He's leading the country in rushing. He's been unbelievable, but he's really not touching the ball that much because he doesn't, he's usually touching the ball 10, 15 times for a couple hundred yards. It's ridiculous. I'm assuming that UCF causes him a little more trouble, but at the same time, I think we see him with more touches than he's accustomed to in some of these games where they've kind of coasted because of him. So he's really pricey. It's hard to get there if you use Milton. You're allocating a ton of salary off those two. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting guy just to see what he can do. 12 yards a carry is pretty good.
Yeah, that seems unsustainable, but who knows? We've got Alvin Kamara's,
Yeah, he's got 79 carries for 934 yards and 14 touchdowns. That's good.
Yeah, that'll work. That will work. Okay, cool. That's a game for you.
Yeah, you can. I mean, obviously that it's cool to talk about, but it's really not a great game to get down because if they're on the field, you can play them. UCF's got a ton of receivers. Memphis has a big name receiver. You could play, it's an 81 over under. If you can fit guys from that game and they're healthy and they're playing, I don't think it's certainly doesn't seem like a mistake.
No, not so much. What about what was the other? Yeah, Washington and Oregon. EMAC's got to be excited for that one.
Yeah, that's God, I am just so sour on Oregon because they blew that game with Stanford in the most ridiculous fashion. They should be undefeated, but they get Washington at home, which is a huge deal. tricky game to break down. Washington's defense is really good. Oregon's got what now everyone is saying will be Saquon's new teammate next year at quarterback. Herbert, he's great, but he's more of a, in my opinion, he's a better real life quarterback. You talk about this with Aaron Rodgers a lot. Like, this guy's hyper efficient. A lot of 20 for 24 kind of games. I don't really think it's a great target. And to be honest, I think this game is kind of not grinded out. It's a tough one to really look to, though. I think Oregon competes, certainly, but Washington's clearly the best defense they've seen. They were good against Stanford. They blew the game. CJ Verdell, who's their running back, 6,100. I think that's a pretty fair price. Don't mind him. Explosive. If they can move the ball effectively, it's probably because he's certainly involved.
All right. Oklahoma State, Kansas State?
Yeah, that's a good one. You got Kansas State, they've just kind of been a mess this year. They can't figure out their quarterback situation. It looks like Skylar Thompson has taken over. He's only 5,600. He's mobile. I would venture to say I think you see him as on a lot of people's teams as their QB too. Figuring, if he takes all the snaps. Oklahoma State's defense is not great by any stretch. That could be a way to do it. On the other side, Cornelius he's very good. I don't think he's going to be overly popular. He's in a dead zone. Justice Hill, the running back, and then it's really tough with Oklahoma State. We've seen time and time again, even you at this point, I feel like these receivers, whether it's Stoner or Landon Wolf now, there's a lot of guys. It's kind of hard to peg that production.
Yeah, stupid Stoner.
Yeah, Tylan Wallace is clearly, I think at this point, the guy, but he's 60, he's priced like he is. So it's just going to be a matter of how much salary are you paying up to maybe go get a guy like Mackenzie Milton, or can you afford a string of those 6K guys?
Yep. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's tricky. There's a lot of, the SEC games are good games, but tough to target. Tennessee, Auburn. You'd have to assume Auburn really grinds that out. LSU, Georgia, that's going to be a battle. In Death Valley, Georgia's really, really good. But LSU at home's a tough place to play.
Do you like Holyfield at all for Georgia? It seems cheap enough. It's more
where is he in
the 5,400?
The problem with him, I don't know if the upside is there. He's a complimentary back, and that's what he is. He's effective, but in a game like this, they're going to have to really, I think, bring their A game, and DeAndre Swift is their guy. Now, if Holyfield gets going, maybe he sees some additional carries, but I'm not sure exactly we haven't seen Georgia be really tested. I guess the best thing that we've seen was them at Missouri, and Holyfield had a good game there. But even there, I don't know how high the ceiling is, just because he's clearly the number 2 back.
Yep.
I think, speaking just, in that price point, I would look to, and again, I know we still have some time, so you can always find me in Slack tomorrow, leading up to lock, should have more clarity. But a guy like Treston Ebner on Baylor, he's 4,700, so a little cheaper. He kind of came out of nowhere last week against Kansas State. Maybe that carries over. I'm not sure how they want to divvy up the carries. I kind of think for me, though, I'm more apt to take a shot with someone like that than Holyfield, who his role is a little more defined, so I don't know how much wiggle room he has in terms of a big explosion.
Gotcha. Cool. Any other plays? My boy Hollywood Brown on this slate?
No, it's sad. Hollywood Brown has been awesome this year. I've had a pretty good, DFS college football so far, and it's because I've just played him every single week, and the guy's awesome. He's incredibly good. Like most weeks, there's a lot of games. What I do the same thing. I try to identify a handful of guys that I feel really strongly about, and then I see where I'm at. You know what? There's just so many options in these lower ranges. You kind of have to see where you got to go and then build accordingly. So I'm going to look to those high scoring over under games. I mean, not breaking any news here on the obvious games to target. And then we'll see how feasible it is in terms of salary if you really do try to reach and get a couple of the big dogs.
Okay. Fair enough. I like it. We do have a couple questions in the chat going back to
Sure.
the NFL about favorites, DraftKings cash receivers.
Cash receivers.
Yeah. I think there's sort of, there's an upper tier and a lower tier. I think Julio, just that 7,900. I mean, I'm probably going to do it. He's going to be super heavily owned in cash. He's got the highest projection on the slate. Like it could be tilting, but I don't think it will be. And I think he'll be owned enough in cash that it's not like this is I don't like to use this as a justification usually. I don't usually play a guy because he's popular, but it does mitigate the downside a little bit when someone is popular.
In cash, it does for sure. I'll take it one step further. I know we have a couple more questions, but I wanted to ask you this. Are you more apt to say, or do you think this is just bad reasoning in general? Julio's going to be super popular in cash. I'm going to play him in cash so I can go slightly under in tournaments and kind of hedge it.
Probably. I mean, if he's truly, I'm starting to see projections where he's like 33, 35% owned in tournaments. Like that's nuts. Like that doesn't really happen with NFL players unless they're running backs. So
they have that big millionaire contest, the $3,000 one. I legitimately think he might be 40%.
And that's a juicy fade there, man. That's okay, Tevin Coleman time. Like Tevin Coleman's going to be 5% owned in that, and Julio's going to be 40.
3 million, 1 million to first. It's hard to say, even if Julio smashes and you're dead. It's hard to. And I'm not trying to talk people out of Julio. I love him this week, like everybody else.
Same. So in the 555 this week in golf, I didn't play Justin Thomas. Justin Thomas was by far the best player in this field, by far the best play on the board. But at 50% owned, I was like, I don't think I can. I think it makes. I actually don't even think at 50% owned it was like that juicy of a fake, because I think he is about 50% to like top 5. But
bizarro world. Anyway, cash receivers.
Cash receivers. Julio. I mean, I think Jarvis Landry, Juju, Thielen are all in play at the higher end, and then there's some punts too. I mean, not punts, but like some sort of high fours guys.
I'm considering Chester Rogers for cash. I know that may seem ridiculous, but if we get clarity that Hilton and Doyle are clearly out, which I'm pretty sure they are.
They are already. Yeah, I think that was like a couple hours ago.
And if Ebron is out as well, I think he's trending towards playing. Chester Rogers for me seems like a guy who's going to see a boatload of targets again.
Okay. Yeah, I think Kiki Kute is like sort of in play. Will Fuller sounds like he's going to play, but I mean, 4,600, that guy's getting some. He's getting some work. Lockett is a little bit risky, but I like the play. I like, who was the other one? Oh, Mo Sanu, I think is fine. I wouldn't. The problem is, like, especially if OJ Howard's playing, then all of a sudden Hooper is going to be the like cash tight end play. I would try to avoid rolling like, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones,
on Falcons stack
slot. But it could certainly work. I don't know. The Arizona guys are like just stupid cheap now. Like Larry Fitz and Christian Kirk are both like mid 4s. Yeesh. I mean, tough matchup, but
I don't think I'm going there in cash.
No, yeah, I'm sorry, probably not for cash, but I may have some in tournaments. God, Fitz has been so tilting this year.
Real bad.
Oof. You got any feel about Jacksonville? I know you were real big on DD last week, didn't work out, but like, do you have anything new there for you?
Not really. I wouldn't mind, me. I tend to stick because I don't think we can pinpoint things. I buy in macro builds sometimes. So like, I like DD last week. I like him significantly less, but so does everybody else. I'm not against sticking with him. The problem for me is just I don't love this matchup at all. It's going to be slow and just blah. Having said that, I still will have some, most likely some DD exposure. I'll stick with that a bit.
Guy I've never really cared for, but like I think is in a really nice buy spot this week is Amari Cooper. Not a cash play, but 5,200 against the like non-existent Seattle pass rush.
He's due. I mean, if his game log is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's legitimately 2 points, 30 points, 2 points, 30 points, 2 points.
Yeah, like, and I don't think he's going to be popular, and so that's when you buy those psycho guys when they're not popular.
Yeah,
he's cheap enough that he'll probably be, I don't know, 5, 6%. 6, 7%. Yeah, but it's not going to be double digits for sure. And
he's a good. That's a guy that I think you can almost justify as a good tournament stab, regardless of matchup when he's got low ownership, and he's just never a cash play ever. So right. pretty easy to break down him.
Yeah. He's just not a guy I've ever really played much, but I'm pretty interested in that game. It's just going to be. I always liked Crabtree better when they had the both of them, just because people, rightfully so, like Cooper was a workout monster. He's got good tape. He was really good in college. I understand. CSU Ram, like one of the great DFS players, like obviously loves the guy. So I think he bumped his stuff up quite a bit for a while. But I just found myself personally more playing Crabtree just because he was legitimately getting more work. And was usually cheaper and less popular just because people were looking for the Cooper breakout, which I get. Cooper potentially is a good player, but I mean, what year? It feels like he's 27. I think he's like 23.
He was he was just like the next Julio at Bama. Like they roll out some monster beasts. He's
not nearly as big or fast as Julio.
No, but he was equally dominant. He was another very good college player.
Yeah. It's just, we don't, I talk about this a lot, but I don't think people really understand like the difference in physicality. Like Julio is just bigger and faster. Like then the size speed combo that he has is just completely unrivaled. There's no one like him.
He can't even catch the ball. Just 0 targets this week, probably.
Probably
brutal. Anyway.
Oh man. All right. Well, that about wraps it up. Anything else for you? Any sort of final thoughts on any of we talked college football, we talked real football, and we talked golf. What do you?
No, just a couple of administrative things. We've said this throughout the show. A couple of different things. Come Monday, we're gonna be more interactive. So obviously, chat. We want to hear your thoughts. We love the questions. Keep them coming. Appreciate it. You catch me Sunday talking more NFL with Lofty. More confined thoughts, and on Slack tomorrow if you guys decide to dip into some college football. But good luck. Anything else?
No, I will have projection updates posted. We got NBA starts on Tuesday, so we got tons of stuff rolling out for that. We had another on the contrary with the Boss Man and Spags and Evan Silva last night, which is always a fun show to check out. But yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Chris, appreciate you, man. And if you can like us on the YouTube thing, that is helpful. It does make us look good.
Does more than you would think. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, buddy. Josh, I appreciate you too, buddy. And all right, I hope you won in FIFA. And we will talk to you all. Ben will talk to you on Sunday, and the two of us will be back on Monday.